a grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lad.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.
Hello, fellas. Hello.
Are you starting off with Dalo's crack?
Patrick.
Oh, Jesus Christ, like, you know.
It would be too much air for Dalo.
No, it's too much air, yeah. I'd say he went to
McGrath,
you nearly be okay for the Dalo's, lad.
I'm losing it.
Yeah,
By bit.
You're all right, but you're okay.
Okay, folks, we're going to kick off. We're going to start off. We're not going to ramble here now small, but we're going to keep this short and sweet. Small bit different. This isn't the Dalo Hurling podcast. We're going to get this to the Little All Ireland. And, of course, two beauties joining us this week, Mark Landers and Seanie McGrath, of course, famous with our live Irish Examiner commentary team. Boys, thanks along for jumping along.
No bother, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
You're looking forward to a busy weekend?
Pat, 1 second now before we start. Like, what's this about kicking off? Anything like this is a hurling weekend now, not a football weekend. I know you're doing both, like, but
I know, sure. Yeah,
we're pucking off now the weekend, not kicking off, like.
Yeah, pucking off.
Language
Throw it in.
Throw it in. Let it off.
Well, tell me, busy weekend ahead, lads, and we've got some games this weekend live in the Irish Examiner.
Yeah, the senior starts. Big one tomorrow night. Friday night, Glen and Newtown. Couple of nice senior A ones. Saturday, I know all the grades: Premier, Intermediate, Junior, Premier, whatever they call it. Intermediate A, and then the Premier Senior Sunday, and a couple of tasty relegation ones. So a busy weekend for sure.
And what we're down to,
it's really. You know, isn't that what it is now? It's really a weekend, the festival of hurling starting on Friday night, Saturday and Sunday. Like, you know, just like, you know, if you're watching the Premiership across, I was just thinking a couple of weeks ago there, like all the soccer matches used to be on Saturday. Now you've got Friday night football, Saturday, Super Sunday, and then you've Monday night football as well. And then you throw in the Champions League on a Wednesday night, and you throw in UEFA Cup or whatever it is on Thursday night. The whole thing is taken up with soccer, so I suppose from our point of view, it's great to have a lot of hurling matches played over the weekend and played over 3 different days to promote the club game, which I think is very important in the current age, you know.
Yeah, and it is going to be a busy weekend, and our biggest weekend on the Irish Examiner as well. 5 games, and look, I think we'll get straight into it because it's a massive weekend. Seanie, we'll start off with your own club, Glen Rovers and Newtown Transham. I know you didn't get to see the third round game against the PSHC because you were obviously with us in Super Sunday, but there must be a good buzz around again, back in again to be back into a quarter final. I think is the 7th quarter final in a row.
Yeah, and I'd say like it was a kind of a funny year for the Glen at different stages. They didn't have a brilliant league campaign and got relegated down to the division below when they were beaten by Carricktool just before the championship kicked off, and that was followed by a defeat against Erin's Own, which at the time people were probably slightly surprised with. But look what Erin's Own have done since, have now gone into the automatic semi-final spot. Very good side. And responded well then with, Bishopstown always put up to the Glen. They're a good team over the last couple of years. They've always thrown in the odd surprise, and I wasn't surprised myself at the challenge that Bishopstown put against the Glen. But the Glen responded very, very well, and the same against PSHC the last day. I suppose on the other side though, Patrick, Newtown have had their own ups and downs throughout the championship, but to score 126 against Douglas, who probably were tipped before Super Sunday to be topping the group and going automatically into a semi-final, and to only concede 217, goes to show it's going to be a massive challenge for the Glen. And the weather has turned. This time last week we were looking at baking fields and there wasn't the green grass to be seen. It was all brown stuff. It was like being in holidays in Spain again. And now very, very quickly the fields have softened up, so which will slow things down. So look, it promises to be a brilliant hours hurling. A lot of focus on whether Patrick Horgan is fit or not. There's suspicion that maybe his knee is at him, and that will definitely tip the scale Newtown if he's out. He's the marquee man, 133 in the championship to date. It's a huge return over only 3 championship games. But yeah, look, Patrick, it's still a great achievement for the Glen to be, qualifying again and coming out of the group. After, as I said, a difficult start, and the banana skin that came after with Bishopstown, who knows what way it was going to go, but they battled manfully and got through the task. So it promises to be a huge encounter Friday night.
And as for Newtown Shandremark on the other side of the coin, a disappointing loss against Middleton in the second round, but a great bounce back to defeat a tough Douglas team.
Yeah, I actually saw the second half of the Middleton and Newtown Shandrum game, and Middleton were very much on top, Patrick, on that night. Even though I'd say Newtown themselves would say their first half performance was very, very good. But they got totally overrun by Middleton, and so they were total outsiders and going in against Douglas. And in fairness, they needed to win that game, and Douglas also needed to win that game if they wanted to get the automatic spot. So I think both teams were, Douglas were qualified, but both teams, I think, would have been going at it full on to try and get, to keep their season in place from a Newtown point of view, and Douglas looking for the top spot. So, I suppose, to be fair, would have been everybody's favourites going into that match. So I think Newtown did a brilliant job to get over them and to set up a really good semi-final with Glen. And the Glen have been in 5 county finals, winning 2, losing 3. So they're a very, very experienced team. You have a couple of inter-county stars on both sides as well. So, but there's no doubt the injury to Patrick Horgan, if it's as bad as what it's, what's out there at the moment, both teams, the betting has flip-flopped in the middle of this week. Glen would have been hot favourites at the start of the week, and now Newtown seem to be favourites. So maybe the bookies know more than what we know, but I suppose, Shawnee, you being on the inside track, you might have a better idea there as to whether Patrick will be taking the field on that on Friday night.
Yeah, and I was talking outside of hurling to a Glen person to do with my kitchen, and I mentioned it, and it was like mentioning the war. What did you hear? He's kind of involved in the back room, so they're keeping it very, very hushed up there. There's nothing leaking out. But Mark, if it is as serious as they say, this could be kind of beyond this game. It could be this game and beyond. I think the worry up there is that if it is, and they do get over a Newtown game, that Patrick may not be back for the semis. That's the little whispers I'm hearing. But all will be revealed at 7:30 Friday night, because beyond the season, if it is the dreaded cruciate, we'll call it, which is the first thing you think of when you hear of knee injuries now, that will have an impact beyond this year even. So fingers crossed it's not as serious as they're saying. Fingers crossed he gets some time. And beyond Glen Rovers, when it comes to Cork stuff and all that it isn't as serious.
Yeah. But I suppose it's fair to say, Shawnee, he has been really, he's had no major injuries right through his career for a significant amount of games. He's Cork's all-time leading scorer. But and even looking at the bills in terms of your scoring averages, the Glen have a plus 16, I think, -1. So, I mean, the Glen certainly would have power based on the league games that have been played already. Well, and there'll be probably a lot of people tell us that stats nearly dictate everything now in today's modern era. But I suppose we'll be robbed of a fantastic player in Patrick for the club championship if he doesn't tag out. But obviously his fitness for the rest of the season, or maybe for the rest of his, for maybe next year and so on. That is a serious thing. He's not bad and doing his best because he's a fantastic player.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's slightly different to last year, obviously, with the sending off last year just before half time. The Glen had to play a full half against Newtown, or against Mulcahy, without him. I think this one is slightly different because last year you had emotions and momentum and energy, that drove the Glen on. Whereas if you start the game without him, heaps pressure on the other 6 forwards. But this is the challenge that the Glen are going to face over the next couple of years. He can't go on forever. So, there will be a time when fellas and I know they are stepping up, but where they really take the leadership mantle, fellas like Simon Kennefick. Dean Brosnan has been doing it for a good couple of years as well. In fairness, Dean has been a very consistent player for Glen, maybe not as electrifying as Patrick, but has been chipping in always with his 2 or 3 scores. That may need to be 3 or 4 now the next night. And Simon has been playing well, but going from almost second in command to the leader, that's a huge challenge. So, and this is a challenge maybe that Glen will face on Friday, and where Simon and these guys need to really step up and show some serious leadership, because, and look, he's a talisman like Jamie Collin is as well for Newtown. He's a talisman like Shane Kingston is for Douglas. Every team has a leading marksman. So the other lads, if Patrick doesn't start, they just got to man up, get the scores, and just try and get over the line.
I think, Shani, the one thing from Glen Rovers' point of view is that the surprise, and it isn't something that happened the night before the championship match. So, the players have had an opportunity to divulge it, the management, the supporters. So there's no major expectation. And you're right. I think the other 14 players then just need to raise their game to make up for his loss. It's something different than if you got injured the night before, or even you mentioned the experience in Killeagh. There were things that the Glen hadn't experienced before. So when something comes at you from left field and you don't get time to prepare for it, that can have a detrimental effect on the team. I think the fact that it's probably out there and in the public domain, I think the players will probably have dealt with it, and they will be, let's say, well fired up. Performance of the year so far.
Okay, so we'll come back to maybe choices and who you think will win matches a little bit later on. But let's move on then to the double header on Sunday. And Mark, I suppose I'm going to touch this one with you, kicking off with the Douglas and the Bears. A cracking game to kick off Super Sunday for the quarterfinals.
Yeah, so an all-city derby, close neighbours as well, and 2 young, vibrant teams, I would suspect, with a lot of good hurling on both sides. All came out after the last round of the matches. That probably was the fixture that stood out a little bit, like the Bears and Sals, one of the fixtures that stood out in the 3rd round. So I think this probably is the draw of the quarterfinals. Both teams have been really, really, in particular, I think Patrick, really progressive, and they have shown really, really good form this year. I suppose Douglas will be really disappointed. They're excellent, scoring 2 goals and 24 points in both their early rounds. I think they'll be really disappointed that Newtown beat them, but they came up against a team that wanted to stay in the championship, wanted to get to the quarterfinal, and they're Newtown are tough opposition to play, particularly when you go up to North Cork to play. So I think I think it's a mouth-watering proposition, and I think for anybody going to the matches on Sunday, get in on time, because I think this will be a rip roarer. I think you have 2 offensive teams in some respects. There'll be plenty of tactics, I have no doubt, with both managements and stuff like that. And I think that both teams have enough players from a tactics point of view to be able to adapt to whatever actually happens. And we've seen that already with the Bears against Blackrock early on. When Blackrock were against the 2, the Bears made a number of adjustments, and that paid dividends on the night, and they got the victory. It was a magnificent victory for them. You'd have to say Douglas. There's a little bit of a cloud of doubt on Douglas's, I suppose, resolve at this moment in time, because they were brilliant in the first 2 rounds, and then obviously they came on stuck against Newtown when they were hot favourites. So I suppose the Bears have been really progressive, I would say, and they have massive what could it go wrong, or what could go positive for both teams. I think both teams are playing football up to last Sunday, so I think it's fair to say neither of the 2 teams have an advantage against each other in this occasion. So I do think that whoever wins on Sunday, obviously Douglas are out of the football, it would probably suit Dougie a run at the hurling. Obviously, if the Bears win, their footballers are really, really good. Reigning county champions, and possibly would be favourites to win the football championship again this year. And there's a significant amount of players across both teams. So that's something that the Bears have to deal with. But I've no doubt with the management they have that they'll deal with it, and the club are probably crying out for the Sean Murphy to come back up Barrack Street. I think it's a one-way street at the moment now, and I don't know whether the pipe band will be able to come up there or not, but I've no doubt if the Bears happen to win the county this year, I think the Barrack Street band will certainly play a merry tune coming up there this year. So, but that's a mouth-watering patch, you could have to say.
Yeah, it is, and you have to look back at last year, of course, when Douglas were beaten by Blackrock in the quarter final. When then themselves they had a chance in that game, and just before half time, when they were in the game, Brian Artner picked up a red card and just lost away in the third quarter, and the Rockies kicked on to a good win in the end. So it is those close, narrow margins that will decide those games.
Oh, it will, and like, you're right in terms of like Douglas were on. I say we're very much in that game against Blackrock last year until the sending off happened, and they certainly lost their shape and stuff for that. So that's what I'm saying to you about. There's a little bit of a cloud about their form, and that's something that Douglas themselves will have to. They'll be aware of it, but they'll have to sort that out themselves. That they need a level of consistency, and it's no different than the Coxine Hurling team. When they're hot, they're sizzling, but when things go out of kilter, they don't play as good as what their form is. So, but I really think it will be a classy hurling game. I'm not sure. I didn't hear who the referee is for that game, Patrick. You might know, but you would be hoping that the referee will let it flow, because I think both teams will want to go and express themselves on Sunday, and the referee is there to obviously apply the rules, but also at the same time let players express themselves.
Well, your wish
Johnny,
is
you're
my
like
command, Mark.
Back from the
Cahill McAllister had as your referee.
Well, I don't know. Will Douglas be awfully happy with that, Patrick, because he said not after last year, But look, Cahill is an excellent referee, brilliant and referee, and I don't think Douglas could have any complaints with the manner in which he was sent off last year. So it's just one of those things. Embrace the referee, embrace the pitch, embrace the conditions, because it's the same for both teams.
Well, as Mark said, great to have Shawnee back out of the dead, wherever he came from. Shawnee, talking about Blackrock and McKillie. Mark's raving about the first game being a cracker, but I could see this game being a cracker too.
Yeah, and we did the Kelly and Avondhu game a couple of weeks ago. And to be honest, I was surprised a bit at how well Kelly were motoring. The new lads that have come in have just seamlessly, got up to the pace of it and have come into, what sometimes I suppose with divisional sides now, Mark obviously will know back in the 90s how good they can be. But at times things in divisional can be a little bit disjointed. They don't meet as often as they should. And lads are coming in maybe with little angst that can happen when club sides in the division meet each other. But the likes of Mikey Kelly has come in and has just been an absolute revelation. Obviously, Kieran Joyce with his All-Star nomination and Young Hurler of the Year nomination is a class act anyway and would seamlessly come into any side. But still, he's new to the grade and he's new to the division. And they've been just absolutely brilliant. And then have complemented fellas like, Shane O'Regan, who was intermediate or who was with him McKillie last year, and is obviously SARS man. So anyone that's gone out has been substituted by quality. So I think about from the point of, the quality at hand, Kieran O'Brien, Joyce, as I said, Mikey Kelly, the Lawtons, they're all quality hurlers, and even though Avondhu were good and physical and strong the last day, and Colin O'Brien and Mark Keane at times made it hard for them, the quality that Emma Kelly had, and I haven't even mentioned Shamie Harnedy. So, when you throw him into the mix as well, and his form, Shamie, as the season's gone on, will get better and better. So I expect him to have a huge game. So yeah, Emma Kelly are very, very strong. And the Rockies, like everyone is kind of talking about they barely got out of the group and they can't be that good because this team did that to them and this and that, and at Charleville they should be beaten. Not a chance. Charleville are very, very decent. And I think that could almost make Blackrock battle hardened. Winning games you almost shouldn't be winning, coming back at the death. And likes of, Alan Connolly and Ty Deasy, Michael O'Halloran, their form, I think, will get stronger. I was up in Michael's, the Dazzlers against Pursound the other night, and Robbie Cotter is as good a footballer as he is a hurler. Fellas like him, I think that's the dual thing, is play away. I can only imagine. I heard the Rocky or the Michael's manager been interviewed after. They seem to be managing that mix fine. I don't think Robbie did a whole pile of football training leading up to the football game. They just managed him from a kind of a freshness point of view. He kept using the word freshness. And I can imagine Louis Mulcahy this week as well is trying to get that balance with the likes of him and Meany, who was very good as well the other night. Just trying to get that freshness. And if Blackrock are fresh, if the key players really stand up and perform, they've been doing reasonably well, probably 7 out of 10, but I'd expect them to explode the weekend. Just to match Mark's maybe analysis on Douglas and the Bears, I think that Blackrock in a Killeagh game will be an absolute humdinger, because like over the years, the Killeagh have always been benchmarked off their physical, on top of their brilliance with individual brilliance. They're so physically imposing and strong. And when they got their 3 in a row, you had the likes of Decky Dalton and these fellas that were body solid, good, strong, athletic players. But Blackrock will match them in that department as well. So I think this could be a good mix of hurling, fast flowing stuff, and then the physical stakes. I'd expect the right humdinger. And if I was calling it, even though immediately in the aftermath of Killeagh and Avondhu, I was kind of tipping Killeagh as an outside bet, I have a feeling that just the way they were up against it and knew they had to win against Charleville and the game was gone from them, I think that'll do something to the mentality and to the psyche of the Blackrock guys that just might get them over the line.
Okay, we might touch more on it in a short while. We're going covering Senior Hurling Championship on Saturday, and 2 quarterfinals done for decision in Páirc Uí Chaoimh at 7 o'clock. Ballyhay against Courses. But firstly, Mark, an East Cork derby between Bright Rovers and Clyne, 2 teams you know very well indeed. A game at 5 o'clock. Of course, you formerly coached Bright Rovers a couple of years ago. You've often faced Clyne in battles down through the years. This is going to be a real titanic tussle, one would think.
I faced Bright Rovers in a couple of battles as well, Patrick, I can tell you. Two clubs with a fair reputation for being tough on and off the field now. So, that's a real East Cork derby. I'm a bit disappointed, to be honest with you, the match isn't on in Middleton, because I think it would draw a fantastic neutral crowd. And I know now the doubleheader is important as well, and that carries its own weight, and the Examiner are going to be live streaming it. Wouldn't it have been a really good match to have in Middleton, because it would capture the imagination of all the other East Cork clubs, I think, and but I suppose, you mentioned Bright Rovers earlier on. They have a lot of good players, got a lot of youth, the 2 Roaches, Paddy Flynn, Conrad Ryan, Ryan Prendergast is a loss, he's gone to Canada, Jason Pratt, Brian Murphy has retired. We saw them last year against Bright Rover, or against Father O'Neill. So I think, Clyne will probably be looking forward, as they always are, to taking on the challenge. But they were in a poor position after 2 rounds of the championship, and they really produced a Houdini act to leapfrog 2 teams to get into the quarter final. And fair play to them, and we gave them massive credit on the night, and no doubt. And I said this, to a couple of lads in Killeagh, they were talking to me about who'd be in the relegation final, and I said, lads, when you got Clyne beaten, you've got a good day's work done. So, they will relish the challenge of playing Bright Rovers, who are raging hot favourites for the match, based on, I suppose, the fact that the 2 Roaches in particular are 2 maybe inter-county players in the making. Brian is an exceptional forward, really tough, and Owen equally is a fantastic defender as well. He really knows how to defend, and which is it's a great quality to have. So, but they're not just built on them. They have other lads. Paddy Flynn is a fantastic player as well. And of course, they have the minor from there, Shoshana. His name escapes me now. He missed the minor. What's his name?
Cillian Tobin, yeah.
Killian Tobin, you know, so he's excellent as well, and he's had a really good season so far with Bright Rovers. But I suppose, Patrick, you'd have to say, you know, the fact that it's a derby game and it's local, it could be tight, but I think if Bright Rovers turn up, to be fair, I think they'll probably have enough to do that.
Yes, the opening game on Saturday that we'll bring to you live on the Irish Examiner. And the second game, Shawnee, again, another hard game to call because both sides have good history and tradition behind them between Ballyhay and Corsi Rovers.
Yeah, and you know, Ballyhay were in a tough group as well. They were in with Ballymartle, Bright Rovers, was it, and Carrigtwohill. And I think the draw they got against Bright Rovers, you know, was a real landmark kind of part of the year. I'd say they weren't so sure maybe how the year was going to go at early doors. Very much dependent up front on the likes of Pa O'Callaghan with a bit of supporting cast. But Pa, we just mentioned again the talisman of teams. Pa is very much the talisman there. I remember Pa as a minor in 11, was a Johnson, and you know, almost felt that he was one that slipped by. You know, he just had so much talent that time, and you know, I thought he was made for Cork really as a senior player. He just had dash and he was able to get scores out of nothing. So it's great to still see him playing so well for his club. He strikes as an easy-going, easy-breezy fella, take it or leave it kind of guy. But when he's on fire, he's just an electrifying sight. So, and he's been very good as well today. Scored heavily along the way for Ballyhay. But just, you know, I just think Corsi's maybe have a small bit more balance. No real superstars, but very, very balanced and a very, very good coach. We covered it against Blarney, and when they lost the man, I think Goheen got him into the dressing room, got his free taken sorted out. Sweetman went on the freeze. He just worked out what he was going to do with the defence. And, you know, obviously Sean Toomey, you know, got 2 cracking goals. And, you know, they don't have maybe a Pa O'Callaghan, but I think they've got the balance around the field. Mark, you might have said, did you work with Lorden? Did you work with Fergus Lorden centre back before or something? And I hadn't seen the whole point. No, I'd seen Fergus, obviously, but that was the first real night that I thought, wow, this fella can really play in that pivotal centre-back role. So just with those key players and key positions, the ability to get a goal out of nothing, like the goal Toomey got again today against Blarney that we covered, he was still a good 21 yards out when he won that ball in the second half, and his instinct was just put the head down and really go for goal, and he hit it right. He hit it off the ground, hit it low out to the ground and deceived the goalkeeper. It was a brilliant first-time finish. So just on that basis, Patrick, yeah, I think it'll be close. Like, I get a sense, I could be all wrong. They have a great manager, a brilliant Cork player over the years, Darren Ronan, involved with them. I just have a feeling that they might feel they're in maybe bonus territory, getting out of a difficult group. Whereas I really would think Corsi's have one eye up really on this county championship. And having seen them up close against Blarney, they just seem to be teak tough, well drilled. They played to a good game. I'd say if Sean Goheen told them go up Kilimanjaro half naked, they'd do it for him. I would think it would be close, but I still think Corsi's could be 5 or 6 points better than them on the day.
Okay, so Corsi's, Mark, would you turn along the line in that one?
I've been impressed with Corsi's all year, Patrick. I think they've dug out most of the games. Killeagh led them at half time, and Corsi had a magnificent second half. They scored 14 points and hit 7 or 8 wides. They kept Killeagh to 3 goals and a point, and I think, which was a very poor score in the second half. So that was great credit to Corsi's. Saw them against Blarney. Went down the man, as Shawnee had mentioned. They were down 4 points, I think, at half time as well. They dug it out. So they're a tough outfit now, right? But I wouldn't underestimate Ballyhay. You know, they're coming down from Premier Senior from a couple of years ago, and Pa Callaghan certainly has captured the imagination again. He's a quality hurler, desperate strong, and when he gets the ball in his hand, he's a magnificent bust of pace. So, like, Ballyhay have a lot done, Patrick. They're very, very experienced, and it's the first time, I think, all year that Corsi Rovers are going into the game as favourites. And I wouldn't underestimate that now either. So, for me, I think you're coming up against 2 seasoned teams. And let's be honest about it now as well. Corsi's have come up from a lower grade last year. So, and they've done really, really well. But they're favourites for this one. And they had everything to fight for. No, they still have, but like, when you're outsiders, you get a little bit of a kick, you know, and nobody's giving us a hope. No one's giving us a chance. Even the locals haven't given us a chance. This kind of stuff. It's a different story when you're going into the game as favourites. And I think Ballyhay will bring a lot to the game on Saturday. It wouldn't surprise me if Ballyhay will win.
Okay, interesting. And just to wrap up, Shawnee, with the first game, Bride Rovers and Klein.
Yeah, I mean, Klein already, no matter what happens for the rest of the year, have just performed an incredible miracle just coming out of the group alone. I mean, again, we were covering it and trying to follow the numbers and the stats and scores for and against. Like, to get out of the group showed incredible guts, was more than anything else. I certainly didn't expect him to beat. I didn't expect him to beat Newtown in the first place, but to inflict 126-16 or 13-point win. And we've all come across Newtown over the years, and they're a tough team, you know, battle hardened as well, and you know, you earn it. So to get the victory in the manner they did, and you know, all stalwarts by all accounts. Paddy is still playing great stuff. Paddy O'Sullivan and the lad O'Shea seems to be scoring heavily. You know, but I don't know. Like, again, Mark, all the names that Mark has mentioned earlier, the Roaches and the Tobins, I just think they're at the right age profile. And yes, your club comes first. Of course it does. But I think these guys, if they're full of ambition, will want to stay in the championship, will want to keep themselves in the shop window, will want to perform, and will want to catapult themselves into a position where come November, December, when Pat Ryan is looking to put a panel together, I can imagine the two Roaches and Killeagh and Tobin want to make sure their hand is up there nice and high, that the teacher can say, yeah, you're picked out of the group. And again, Mark mentioned him a while ago. Tobin missed that minor county final last year against the Glen. He had a very bad ankle injury, and he still came on like he was summoned with 50 minutes to go, and he hobbled on. Said the boy is made out of good stuff. And looking at his scores from play, like, he's one of the top scorers from play for a young fella at the grade in the whole competition. So I would expect Bride Rovers to come through. I thought they were quite impressive. They were hugely impressive in their first round game against Carrigtwohill. So after, you know, they were a good side, but they blew them away completely. I think they got 5 goals the same day. So you went in that serious firepower. You know, I'm not so sure still how good Klein are. Was it a one-off against Newtown? They lost their first 2 games. Admittedly, they were very, very close. But we know that Bride Rovers are good. They were very, very good in their group stages. So, and allied to that, they just have the right age profile, good, young, fresh lads playing out of their skin. I would expect Bride Rovers to get over the line, Patrick.
Okay, so there are 2 games we've got for you live on the Irish Examiner on Saturday Saturday evening, I should say, 5 o'clock for the East Cork Derby and 7 o'clock for Ballyhay and Courses. I want to touch briefly, lads, on before we go to the Aon Fogra Ella, Rob that from Dalo, for relegation finals, 2 relegation finals in senior. Which
I said, was that Latin? Did you just spout it out there?
No, Aon Fogra Ella is Asquarega, Shawnee.
Oh,
teach you, don't worry. Yeah,
I didn't go to the AG.
Wait, Jesus, the Irish is bad and the maths is bad. You must have done a lot of grinds for the leaving cert, Johnny.
For the record, Mr. Hooley was my Irish teacher. Go on.
Right. She'll be on the phone tomorrow morning if you would. Right. 2 relegation finals. Premier Senior finals, Shawnee. The PSHC against Charleville. Both games, of course, are 2 o'clock up in Mornaby. The PSHC and Charleville. You mentioned about Charleville, how good of a season they had without having a win in the pocket. Had a draw, of course, against the Bars, a 2-point defeat against Blackrock. Opposite end of the scale, really, for the PSHC. You know, they got 3-7 against the Glen, you know, which isn't, you know, a winnable score in Senior Hurling Championship by all means.
No, but it's amazing, like, because I think they've got about 9 championship goals. Would you take at the start of any year? If you thought your forwards will get you 9, the hardest thing in the game is to get a goal. To get 9 in any championship campaign is excellent, but look, at the back they're conceding too much, and Derek Connery's injury is huge for them. And look, again, coining the big names in the world of sport. To hear Ryan Keane on about getting plaudits for playing well. Arsenal played well, but United still won. Charleville are playing well. This is the 2nd year in a row they're in a relegation battle. So as promising as things are, and as well as they're playing in these games and running Blackrock to absolutely the last minute, like, they'll know, and management up there, Mark Foley will know, okay, we're in an amateur game, but it still is a results business. Mark will do everything to get over the line there. He won't have it on his bib that, 2 years in a row he escaped, was it penalties or 45s or something, got him over the line last year against Kerry too.
Penalties, yeah.
I think he'd be looking at a minimum to get the job done in normal time and not to have to go through that extra time stuff again. But like PSHC, know them well, Northside club, not going through a good patch. That's the reality. Heavily defeated against the Glen, put up a good show against Bishopstown, in fairness. And like scored heavily against the Zone. I think they got 4-13 against the Zone. Now, a lot of the scores might have come late, maybe when the Zone took the foot off the gas, but you've got to extenuate the positives. And if you're inside in that camp, 4-13 against a team that's automatically got into a semi-final, shows that there is ability in there. Ford, the guests, these fellas, they can all play, but maybe at the back things are just a little bit leaky. But they're proud, very, very proud. They love hurling up the north side. They will throw the kitchen sink. I heard a rumour how true it is that maybe Sean Ogan, John Gardner is back from the States for good, I heard, and I don't know, have they been above, not necessarily maybe doing sessions, but talking to the group anyway. And I know Frankie Nodwell, who's involved with him, and Frankie's piercing to the core. He's a fabulous guy. Look, it probably is Charleville's to lose based on their performances versus PSHC's. But just because I know that geography well and I know how proud they are about the hurling up there, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they just eked out an incredible result. Very, very hard to call. Look, for all that, though, you would expect Charleville to get over the line, Patrick.
Okay, and the other relegation game, Mark, in the senior championship, that's in the A grade, the second tier, Killeagh versus Ballymartle. A game that will be played in Blackrock's Church Road on Saturday. Both teams will be trying to avoid the Slán Lat door, but it's a tricky one to call.
That's a very tricky one, Patrick. And look, relegation finals by their nature take on a life of their own. And I know it was, I'd say the Irish Examiner streaming would have looked at one of these two games as for live streaming, because the Carrick-2 Charleville game last year was full of drama. And I have no doubt that this will be full of drama as well. I think Killeagh would probably go into the game slightly as favourites, but I don't think in a relegation final there's any favourites, to be honest with you, because both teams are fighting for their lives. But the base on what I'm saying, why they would be favourites, is because I think the combined losing margin of the three championship matches was 7 points. 2 points against Courses, 1 point against Blarney, and 4 points against the raging hot favourites, Father O'Neill, for the championship. So I think they have probably Killeagh performed really well against Father O'Neill's, who everybody would probably suspect, if they keep their form up, they probably will be champions. And they'll be looking towards that line of form to hopefully see them over the line. But Ballymartle are a very proud club, senior with a long time, big physical team, Corries, etc. involved. And, I think it's too close to call. Obviously, myself, I'm obviously hoping that Killeagh will win the game and stay up. But whoever goes down, I suppose they've been defeated 4 times in the championship, and there can be no argument. And as a championship in the rules, I've been always pro relegation and pro promotion, because I don't think any team can have any argument at the end of the season if they've been beaten 4 times in 4 championship matches. So it will be tough on any team that gets relegated, but sometimes whoever gets relegated obviously finds, a new lease of life in a different grade. Some of the players will find that, we weren't good enough to compete in the previous grade. We've been beaten 4 times. There's no argument with that. And you just have to wait and see how things will pan out. But it is a tough situation that both teams find themselves in it. But that's the format that's there. And it's a testing format, you'd have to say. Killeagh will look to the likes of, I suppose, Andy Welsh, Owen Canary, Gary Leahy, I suppose, up front. Per O'Brien is a very, very experienced player at the back. And there's obviously young players coming through, the likes of George Wallace-Waltz, Jamie Fogarty, and Dylan Hogan. So they're young lads that have a great future in front of them. And, Killeagh would have, I suppose, a youngish team, barring a couple of lads that are maybe in their mid-30s. So as Shawnee mentioned earlier on about Bright Rovers having a youthful team, I think Killeagh have a youthful enough team as well. So be hoping that Killeagh, and you just give them a slight nod on Saturday.
Okay. Before we go to our selections, Aon Fógra Ellis, any other games the weekend we want to mention briefly? Or any other teams?
So I suppose the big story really is Lisgould and Castlemartyr have both won 2 county championships back to back and have progressed up to I would say they're looking for the 3rd promotion in a row. That's big news as far as I would be concerned, Patrick. But it also then leads you to, the fact that there will be so many of those players playing again with McKillie on Sunday, and an injury or tiredness and all that kind of stuff could feed into the McKillie thing. But again, as I've already said, that's the way the championship is structured. There's nothing they can do about that. You just have to get on with it. But for me, that's big news in those 2 teams. That getting the double promotions has been really good for them.
I think another one, Patrick,
Shawnee?
possibly again. Yeah, I suppose there's relegations as well in the Premier Junior. I think the Bars are playing Dripsy. And that one is, for me, interesting because, with Dripsy, maybe 15 years ago, maybe, was it? Yeah, 12, maybe around 2008 was it when they went out independent and they got their All-Ireland, and they had some fabulous players, and the Reardons and Mark O'Sullivan and these guys. They look like a club that's in a small bit of bother. The group, they didn't go so well. I think it's a huge game for them. You're back into your division. They're back in. I presume you're back into your division, back into your Musgrave division.
Yeah.
The Bars back into the City division, and the Bars too. I mean, you want your second team playing at a decent grade, and you want your players that are pushing the senior players to be playing at that. You'd like to think intermediate level anyway, but at least minimum Premier Junior, and you're going back into, maybe for the Bars, back into the City division. It's at a slower pace, and the quality probably isn't as strong as the upper grade. So from the Bars perspective, they'll be looking to stay up. But just as a club, their identity, what they stood for when they broke away that time, it's a big game for Dripsy. And for their sake, you'll be hoping they would stay up, and that it isn't, the start of a bigger fall, maybe, because when you go down the grades, it's very, very, very hard to come back up, and they could struggle big time in the Musgrave division to get back up. So that's one that I'd be keeping an eye on, because we played them a few times when I was involved at Glen last year. They have some fantastic, fabulous setup, lovely pitch, great guys involved with them, small numbers. You'd be hoping for their sake to get a result.
Okay, so ups ends of the bargains there for the Aon Fógra Ellis for this week. So we've seen through the senior quarterfinals, Premier Senior quarterfinals. We've looked through. So I want to get a couple of selections, boys. Start this Friday night briefly. Newtown versus the Glen. Who gets through?
I suppose my club, just to start it off. You've got your heart and your emotions and your whatever part of the brain, the clued in part. I mean, the part of the brain that makes sense if Patrick isn't playing, obviously, is that Newtown will get over the line. And look, to go back to Mark's point, if Patrick's injury is such that they knew last Sunday night that he wasn't going to be available, they've had 2 or 3 training sessions this week. They might have a get-together Saturday morning, Tuesday. Oh, yeah, they're playing Friday night. So actually, funny enough, probably Monday, Wednesday training sessions. Does it give them a chance to get their lineup, their matchups right? Does it give them a chance to maybe go a bit more defensive, stifle Jamie Collin, put a bit of pressure on him? Maybe so, and on the basis that it's not at the lastminute.com stuff, maybe it gives them a chance to come up with a plan B. So, I'm going to go with my emotions. I think the Glen might just get over the line on that one.
Yeah, I kind of, at the start of the week, I was Newtown. I was in the Newtown camp, particularly after their performance against Douglas. But I can't get away from the performance against Midland, where they played really well for 20 minutes, but they were poor for the rest of the game. And then when you ally that the Glen have been in, I think, 5 of the last 6-7 county finals, they still have Stephen McDonald, Brian Moylan, probably the best club hurler, I'd say, for the last 7 or 8 years. Really, really solid at centre back. David Noonan in the middle of the field has never left the Glen down. Brazzy the same way, and Kennedy. So, you have a good player there in every line there. You have the likes of Adam O'Donovan as well, playing for the Glen. So, David Doolan, those both lads at underage level and development squads, 2 brilliant guys. So, for me, I flip-flop actually during the week, and I do think the Hoggy injury, the fact that it has been declared well in advance, I think there's no surprises this weekend, and I think the Glen will probably share it.
Okay, Sunday, Mark, will kick off with you for Douglas and the Bears, 2:00 start.
Yeah, again, I think quality hurling game, two young teams, two vibrant teams. Jesus, this is a really hard one to call. I like the Bears, to be honest with us. I think their pace is really, really good, and I think Patrick Mulcahy actually will suit them. I really like Douglas, what they have been doing as well. They've had two magnificent performances, clocking up 224 in early doors. The form took a hit the last day. I think if the Bears play well, does Douglas have a habit of, I suppose, imploding when it comes to the knockout games? So, to me, if Douglas implode again, obviously the Bears will win it. It wouldn't surprise me, Patrick, if this one goes to extra time.
They're still not calling it though, Mark.
And calling a draw, Patrick.
Yeah, we'll go win on the day. Keep going.
The winner on the day, I'd say the Bears will have a better panel.
Okay. There we go. Shawnee?
Yeah, like, I think Mark has touched on something there, like around, I said it the last day, like if Douglas are going to progress as a club, they've got to win these big games. Like they looked again, was it last year, and Blackrock caught them, and everyone had them as favourites to win, and two very impressive, 224, 30, but they were plus 60 going into, for 60. And to get 217, Shane Kingston, I think, was held scoreless the last day. They will be buoyed by the return to form of Alan Carrigan. I thought his form was a good bit off in the first two championship games, and everyone knows how integral he is to anything that comes good out of Douglas. And he got 5 good points the last day from play. Personally, it'll be good for himself, and Douglas will be delighted just to see a key attacker, a Cork player back playing well. Good defence. We saw the last day. We covered the Middleton game. Killian O'Donovan and Mark Harrington got maybe 4 or 5 points all from play, long distance striking. When they hit form, they're as good as what's out there. So as a club, this is their chance now to really step up. The famous Bears, Southside rivals, county All-Ireland champions over the years, some of the greatest players that ever played the game came out of the Bears. This is their chance to really send out a statement. So that's the summary on Douglas. But for all that, back to Mark's point, top players, we mentioned them the last day, Keane watching the corner, maybe lesser known guys that are nice and efficient and tidy, get their job done, and move the ball up the field nice and quickly then to the bigger name guys, the Damien Cahillans, the Conor Cahillans. They've got a bit of an X factor. I think Jack Cahallan is going to make it on the bigger stage. He's just got something. He's so calm. He knows where the posts are. He found, was it Ethan Toomey early doors to set up the first goal? Again, looking at that mix, Ethan Toomey on the paper during the week is in as second or third top scorer from play in the football championship. I mean, what a young fella, like. And now he's playing last week there, and he's out again now this week. And he was a star last day against SARS. And I just think when you've got young, fresh lads that are carefree, they just want to play again. I could see the Bears. I could see the Bears getting over the line here. And they've got great management, John Cremin, Billy O'Shea, Sean McCarthy, and of course Joe Cunningham that knows the game inside out tactically, and even playing for the jersey stuff. They've got everything on the line. I think the Bears will win it.
Yeah, the Bears full back line now is going to get a fair testing on Sunday. And like they were stalwarts the last day. Keane was brilliant cornerback. Keane was excellent as well in the corner. But I think they'll be coming up against something different now with Douglas. And like if you have the likes of Shane Kingston and the Alan Carrigans, and if they play 2 on the inside line, it will pose questions. I think that is something that Douglas will try to do. I think they will try to expose the Bears full back line. But it's going to be a cracker now. This one is going to be a cracker.
Yeah, I think so. And like we could see even the last day, Mark, like even the Bears, their half back line, didn't Cahallan hold his own? they didn't get, and then they put Jack O'Connor on him, and he tested, but still Callahan held his own position. So the Bears definitely have a game plan. It's structured, and that will be interesting. Will they modify their game plan to counteract that threat from inside?
I think they'll have to. But like they did it against Blackrock. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to see Ben O'Connor going back as a sweeper or going back in front of the. Whether they leave Damien centre back or not, we'll have to wait. But a lot will depend. And I said earlier on, this is going to be the most tactical match of the weekend, as far as I'm concerned. There will be massive tactical battles in this game. I'm still going for the draw.
So the side
the
side could be as important as the 30 fellas on the field as what Bears is saying.
The Bears an extra time in the second game to be delayed by half an hour.
Right, okay, well, let's touch on the second game. If it is delayed by half an hour, it's still a winner on the day contest. And briefly, just 30 seconds each, lads, because we're going miles over time at this stage. Mark Killeagh, 3-0 champions from 17 to 19. The Rockies winning the championship back there in the last couple of years, though, in 2020, the COVID final, of course, against the Glen.
Yeah.
So for me, Patrick, I think Killeagh, 5 or 6 of their leaders, Kieran O'Brien, John Cronin, Shemi Hannity, Willie Leahy, Brian Lawton, they're there 6 years. They were there when they won the 3 in a row. They're still shuffling the same players there. They've lost the 2 Spillans. Colin Barry isn't playing. Niall O'Leary isn't playing. Paddy Sullivan, Decky Dalton, Bill Cooper. They've lost a massive amount of physicality, and I don't think they've replaced that physicality. And based on that alone, I think Blackrock were very, very worthy champions 2 years ago. I didn't think they got the rub of the green last year. I think this year they've had everything. They won a magnificent first round against SARS, against the Head. They lost the game against the Bears, but hit 19 wides. If they hit half of them over the bar, they would have been comprehensive winners. And then they were tested. Their mettle was tested. For me, I can see Blackrock being beaten on Sunday, and they're total outsiders. But it would be the physicality that they're going to bring to the game, because I don't think Killeagh have replaced all those players that we've mentioned, and they still have great stalwarts, the Hannitys, Lawtons, and them fellas, but they're around with 6 or 7 years, Patrick. And for me, I think Blackrock will win this one.
Sean?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Mark, and like to that, I suppose they're all playing club stuff over the weekend, and that's going to be very, very taxing on the body. And look, I suppose, and just to challenge Mark very slightly, like I suppose last year they probably should have gone over the line. The free taken might have left them down towards the end against the Glen, albeit the Glen were short, Patrick, for the second half. I must say I was surprised by their performance against Avondhu. I thought they moved the ball very well, and they played very well as a team. But Mark is bang on. I mean, just the games that Blackrock have played, I really think that they're going to hit form. Louis Mulqueen, is experienced on the line, has been involved in All Ireland winning teams. He obviously brings something to the table. By all accounts, Davy Fitz did a session with them a couple of weeks ago, and everything in the club, I hear, they get fed after training. Like they almost have an inter-county type of preparation going into the whole thing. And you can say, is that over the top? And it comes down to affordability as well. Not every club can do it, but I just think that builds loads of things. The preparation, and you can imagine he's waxing lyrical about, we are a team that are never beaten. You just feed off all those things. And Connolly was brilliant for Cork earlier in the year. I think he's been mixed enough with Blackrock to date. I expect him now to explode and really catch fire. And I mentioned Halloran and Cotter earlier, and you go back to the backs and Niall Cashman and these fellas. Look, they're sprinkled with talent. I think their season hasn't really taken off yet. And I would agree with Mark. I think it still will be close. I think Dennis Ring is doing a good job on the line, and it's great to have the likes of Bill still on the line. Bill Cooper is an inspirational character, very much involved and very huge role to play in winning those counties. And to retain the likes of him in management is a big tonic for Killeagh. But I'd agree with Mark. I think it's going to be a Blackrock victory.
Okay. Look, it's a busy weekend. Gents, Mark, Shawnee, thank you for joining us. for our Little All-Ireland podcast. The Little All-Ireland is back in town this weekend, and we've 5 games for you live on the Irish Examiner this weekend. Do join us. Check out irishexaminer.com/live events. Subscribe. Pay your €8 if you're paying for your game. Your €50 subscription you're going to pay for the rest of the season. What a weekend of Festival Hurling we have here live on the Irish Examiner. And it's all looking forward to kicking off on Friday night between the Glen and Newtown. Hopefully we'll see you over the weekend. We'll see you next time.
A grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lad.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.